Episode 11, guys.
Episode 11. What's up?
What's up? Hi, Jen.
Hey, Marco.
And I'm Marco. Thank you. Yes, I'm Marco from Immersive Arts and Jen from Immersive Arts as well. How are you doing, guys? Well, no reply. That's good. So,
We're
today,
here to talk about a new topic. The 11th episode, which is fitting after my birthday yesterday.
on the 11th of January.
January. We won't go the year. We don't want people to know how old I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do the math.
Well, yeah, they can't do it, but 11th of January. Yeah, that's true. How was your birthday?
It was awesome.
It's nice.
We went to go see a famous comedian named Bill Burr. He's one of my fucking favorites.
It was very fun. I really liked it.
Yeah, a little crude, a little dark, but man, he gets me every time. Love it. He's what I always want to say out loud, but I can only say in my mind.
Yeah. And do you remember that you noticed something in there, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of fitting with the topic of this episode, which is, let's say, multimedia. We can multimedia, which means having and creating experiences that are more than just one, that tickles more than just one sense, if we want to say that. You'll know that we can always, if we have visual art, we are just using our eyes, and that gets translated into our mind in some type of concept, some type of concept that gives us some inspiration and things like this. But what computing has given us is the opportunity to have a lot of media running at the same time.
Let's define multimedia.
Multimedia, well, the way that I'm talking about is literally like having an experience that, or a project that not only it's made of visuals, but also like sound, taste, all the other five senses.
So it's something that has multiple tools being used, and I guess it can achieve one thing. So it can titillate your vision, for example, but it can also, like you mentioned earlier, touch upon all of your senses or a couple more than just your vision. But the main point of multimedia is that it is using more than one tool to achieve something, which is already interesting when you add more than one thing. Even adding like to traditional media, we can talk about paint. When you add like I've seen what is it called, fluorescent, when like the UV light. I've seen UV spray paint on top of paintings, which I guess you can still consider multimedia, or like adding collage with paint or charcoal and paint. These are still considered multimedia, but when we talk it, we mean something more along the digital lines. So what's an example of a multimedia project in today's sense?
There are some projects that I have in mind. There was a really nice installation here in Berlin that was called Scalar, and was this pretty big installation comprised of light, moving parts, and sound that represent a multimedia experience, which is both sound and visuals, and probably even feeling. Like, if now I wasn't there, but Jen was, maybe you can talk about it. But could be that, for example, if the sound installation is made of very specific frequency that resonate with your body, you can also have some tactile experiences. This is what I mean about multimedia. Yes, usually multimedia is also referred as if I paint on a statue, or like body paint, I don't know, maybe body painting, no, but like like if I do the statue and then I also do like the painting, I don't know, I guess that could be described as multimedia. But the way that we talk about it is like, you know, usually when you talk about digital art, there's the part of music made of electronic music, electronic installation, experiment, blah blah blah. Then you have, you know, the visual side, which is comprised of projection mapping, creative coding, this kind of thing, which we can talk about. Creative coding, very interesting topic.
But yeah, the scholar thing itself was super cool. I think that's a good example to get into. That was an installation here in Berlin. I don't know who curated it, but there were two options that you can visit. One was an installation that went on like during the day. You can come in, you can see the art pieces. And then I think every couple days or every night, I'm not sure, they put on a presentation. And there were I don't think there was there were no DJs. It was just like immersive sound around you, like surround sound. And then they had these hard to describe, light discs, like almost flying saucer looking things.
They were mirrors, right?
Were they mirrors?
I don't know. I think from the photos they look like mirrors.
I'm not sure.
And maybe the light was coming from some kind of
maybe that's
laser beam.
Already multimedia, for example. And so they were all coordinated. They were programmed to work together. And it took you through a storyline. So there's no human narrator to curate the thing, but it was all automatic, all digital, which was super cool.
Also, the music was already
it was already pre-made
exactly, so it was following a certain storyline. So that's for example a sound installation, something that go through a specific and well thought out storyline.
And what's really cool about these multimedia projects, in my opinion, is this idea of synesthesia. And synesthesia, for those of you who don't know, is when some sort of sensory thing is triggered by another sensory experience. A lot of people can see colors, for example, when they hear a certain sound. And this occurs a lot with multimedia projects, which is what I consider to be its biggest power, like its biggest influence, is that just by having these sounds mixed with these lights, which aren't inherently explanatory, like no one's telling you what to feel, it's still conveying an emotion. So you're having this synesthesia experience by experiencing the installation, and then in your mind and in your body you're having a whole different experience.
And it's also cool because maybe like most people don't necessarily experience naturally synesthesia, but the way that you put your installation can not trigger it, but you put two different media at this going at the same time, and that is what synesthesia is supposed to feel like. So if you have just a certain frequency while you look at a certain color, you are effectively artificially experiencing synesthesia that is, you know, decided by the artist. The artist decided that frequency is that color
as much as they can, right?
I
mean, they can't really dictate what you feel, but they can kind of push you in that direction. And in my opinion, I think everyone is a synesthete in some way or another. For example, Einstein used to squeeze a ball so that he can think faster, like think more creatively. A lot of people get it with binaural beats or the like binaural sounds. where I guess the famous one is the haircut, like the barbershop. You put on these really nice headphones and then it sounds like someone's cutting around your head. And some people get like these tingling sensations. Now you have the trend of, what is it? ASMR. That's also synesthesia. And then just your regular, like when you're in the zone and you have your headphones on, close your eyes, and then you can see, some sort of setting. This is all synesthesia, and I think most creative people have this inherent within them. So when you go to an exhibition and an artist is able to awaken this part of you, it's almost like you're awakening the creative part of each human being, which I find really fascinating and powerful.
And you can really work on so many medium as well, because I remember of a case where this guy was connecting numbers with shapes, for example. This things that don't necessarily have a connection between them, but they kind of trigger this very far away connections in your brain, and therefore you can have a tactile experience thinking of a number. So that's really the potential of multimedia, and why new technologies made us think about multimedia or like produce multimedia experiences and projects so easily.
Because now it's more powerful, the sorts of synesthesia effects that you can create, right? Because the tools are so much more powerful and different. You can just start naming media and media, and come up with some interesting projects that are possible. Like, what does AR and VR and painting look like? They've done the tilt brush inside of VR, combine these things. Or what is augmented reality experience and regular painting happen? And now you have these galleries that have augmented reality experiences. Like, you can look at the images and then you can have a secondary thing going on.
Yeah.
So this is all multimedia stuff.
Also, if you think about it, if the main medium of if the main tool of a digital artist, virtual artist, is the computer, they can easily make different media pieces just using the same tool, which is the computer, and just maybe change software, but sometimes not even, because there are some visual programming softwares like V4 processing, P5, for example, or Max MSP, this kind of stuff. They can do both. You can actually make already in one system that you can write on the software both sounds and visuals, for example.
It's almost as if the definition of the medium has changed, because instead of having like projection and this and that and that, like you said, you have the computer, but each program, Photoshop, whatever, these are all different tools, different mediums, all inherent in one thing. So the computer becomes like your studio or your desk, and then all these various programs become your different paintbrushes and paints and stuff.
It feels like that the computing era made the abstraction of medium happening. So like there's no such a thing as mediums, as you said. Like kind of like everything lives in the virtual space, and then we just make it happen into the real space with different stuff, either with projection mapping or with speakers. But at the end, it's all coming from this zeros and ones.
My mom my mom does now work as a scientist at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. And when I was younger, I used to watch her working, and they would have these like desks there, and there was a glass in front of it because she was working with cells, like these alive things, and they could not get contaminated with the outside air. So it created like this vacuum that was inside. Anyway, in order to work inside of this space, she needed to put on the gloves and then like go in. So if you can imagine, you can't enter this world without putting on these gloves, and then you can go inside. And that's how I feel the computer is. They're like the gloves to enter this virtual world, and you can't work into this virtual space without putting on the gloves that is the interface of the computer, you know? So these becomes like your new hands. The keyboard is like your new hands as you're going in and to this fucking almost infinite space, but you literally can't touch it without working on the computer.
Absolutely. And yeah, beautiful.
Marco's without words.
I'm without words. I lost my train of thoughts.
Don't worry.
I'm sorry, guys.
We were going along the lines of the new definition for media and a medium. Going from the traditional phrase use of the word, and now working with these different programs as new mediums that we can work with and create like some crazy shit. I mean, I've seen some AR projects, which is what I'm beginning to get more interested in, just because I like that it mixes with the real space and not completely separates you from it.
Yeah.
And I like when, like, by definition, augmented reality is multimedia because it has to interact with the space surrounding you.
Yeah,
or else it's not
absolutely.
reality.
Also because it's you're augmenting reality. Reality, when we live in it, is a collection of all our senses and all our way that we translate our senses into our mind so that we can understand them. So if you want to augment that experience that is living, then you have to work with multimedia things. So you have to work with augmenting your vision, augmenting your thinking capabilities, augmenting your speaking, augmenting your sound, and yeah.
So I guess working multimedia can augment your experiences, but it can also take you to shit and worlds that could not possibly exist with traditional media, which is the cool stuff. So once you start combining these tools, you start unlocking new levels. You know what I mean?
You were saying actually that you feel like that experience making and like experience designing an experience is way more important for a person to understand art. So you were saying that sometimes you feel that just painting or just doing an animation, whatever, can be a little bit restrictive, right? But if you think it in terms of actually catapulting you into a different experience and really make you feel the concept that you want to portray on a more grand scale, being really part of it, then multimedia is the way to go. And also, in general, virtual and digital multimedia is probably the way to go. Because of my opinion of, and the main focus of immersive, which is interaction. When you are in the world, you do interact with stuff. That's why it feels so real, and it feels like that you can, be part of it and be an actual beginning of change. And
you feel hope in a way. You feel like you could make a difference in the space.
In the same way, I think that if you contribute to to a certain experience made by artists and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
It can make you experience that project, that event, that overall experience in a more real way, and therefore you can arrive to the concept a little bit more and better.
Yeah, it makes you feel as if you matter. And perhaps art making in the past has been a little selfish in that it's a lot of times artists trying to push their own ideals. And you read the manifestos of different art movements and art periods. A lot of the times it's artists projecting their ideas and their concepts out into the world using their artwork, which is fantastic. But now I think what the mission is, and kind of what Immersive's mission is in particular, is not to push some sort of movement on anyone, but rather to welcome everyone inside of this movement.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to push it on people, but you want to welcome them in. And a good way with that is, yes, interactivity, using multimedia tools.
I mean, we are in the age of technology and information, and we as people now can feel part of a bigger ecosystem. We are just trying to represent that, but also by doing that, it just arrives to probably the ultimate focus of life, which should be, bettering yourself, evolution in a way. Starting from something that was a little bit less, and as a society altogether creatively become something more.
Yeah, I think these things can't even be touched upon previously, like before all the technology came out. I love what you said before about being able to push concepts even more with multimedia tools. Like, just think of your basic animated explainer video. There's some models and some concepts that are so much better illustrated through something moving. Like I'm interested in physics, and a lot of these things are super complex to even grasp your brain around. And these animated videos help me a lot. I watch them a lot because you can see people's thought experiments literally illustrated onto the screen for you. It's almost like you're getting into their brain as they did this thought experiment, these philosophers and these physicists and stuff like that. So certain concepts couldn't even have been touched upon effectively without using this new medium. And in the same way, even more and more complex, like as the concept gets more and more complex, and perhaps you do need sound, you do need tactile things, you do need other sorts of ways to change your perception of how you see the regular world. Like, the point of this multimedia stuff is not to mimic reality, it's to be as similar to reality as possible, in that you can participate in it, like you were just saying, but then also turning it to another direction that you perceive it a little differently than you do the regular world. It's like shedding a light onto something you didn't see before. That's the point.
I mean, I think we have been definitely restricting ourselves in the past, well, since art began. Because, okay, we can read a book, but just imagine how it will be if you have a moving story, like movies, just like films and stuff like that. They're a little bit more complex experience because, well, at least the good ones, because they require knowledge of many different stuff, like storytelling, visual communication, music composition, and they do feel a little bit more. That's why probably movies has been probably the most consumed piece of media.
I like to think of it as
and photos. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe photos. I like to think of a good metaphor for things that, like, of these concepts when we're trying to talk to you guys about them. And I guess a good way to stress how powerful multimedia can be is to liken it to traditional storytelling. So, like, back in the days, you gathered around with your tribe or whatever, and in order to pass down concepts and knowledge and etc., you told a story, and you told the story with music, you told it with dancing, with narration. So it wasn't just lecture, or it wasn't just like you're reading this scroll or whatever, papyrus, whatever the fuck they had back then. You know, you're having yeah, you're having an experience. That's traditionally how humans have translated concepts into the minds of other humans. It's a whole thing. It's a feeling that you're trying to transmit. It's to convey the urgency of like family and like protecting your tribe. You can't just tell your people that. You need to tell them a story of how if you don't stick together, then the other tribe is going to come and fuck us up. Mm-hmm. And to get that across loud and clear, you have dances about it, you have songs about it, you know, you do all these things all at once. It's always been multimedia, and now again we're finally getting back into it, and that's the most powerful way, in my opinion, to tell a story, is multisensory.
If art at the end of the day is just a language that we are trying to explore in different ways. So with poetry, we are trying to explore the language of technology. If we are painting, we are exploring the sharing of information through visual language. If we are exploring music, it's through using sonic language. Then we should gather all the things that we have learned during the years of art into this new media that can easily connect all of them, which is the virtual art, you know, digital art, computer-based art. We probably need to understand how to call it eventually, because or maybe they have different names, you know, depending of the things that we talk about.
I like virtualism.
I like virtualism. Like virtual.
We're the virtualists.
Yeah.
But even virtualism, I guess whatever you want to call it eventually, like I said before, it wouldn't be pushing anything on anyone. It wouldn't be pushing an ideal necessarily, but rather it would be illustrating a way of art making which is inclusive.
Yeah, describing a new way of thinking. Definitely. Then there are some parts that will be more inclusive. For example, where like talking about interactivity into virtualism, let's say, which is a very big part in interactivity. Yeah, it's definitely a very big part.
But we can talk about that another day. We'll save that for another podcast. I think now it's time to wind down. Just remember this talk about multimedia because it's super important. There's strength in numbers, and when you start to combine different tools, you get infinite amounts of possibilities rather than using just one. And if you don't feel comfortable diving completely into your computer and only using all these programs as different tools and different media, then hey, combine it with your old tools that you have. Combine it with your painting. Combine it with you know, your illustration or your music making. Start just testing the waters with this multimedia thing. I know I will. I'm gonna start making augmented reality tattoos. Let's see how that goes. I got my tattoo stuff today, so
I can't wait to see it.
We'll update you on that.
Well, on this note, thank you very much, guys, for listening.
Thank you.
I guess we'll see you at the next episode.
We'll smell ya.
We'll smell ya, definitely.
Bye.
Through smell-o-vision.
Marco.
Thank you, Jen.
Bye.
I'll see you soon. Bye.